News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and
George.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast right here from Soonerscoop.com studios on historic Campus Corner, and we welcome in the usual crew. Josh McQuiston joins us from Houston HQ. We have, I want to say, Benjamin Button sitting next to me, Eddie Radosevich. We'll tell you more about that coming up. George Stoya, and I'm Kerry Murdoch, and welcome to another edition of the Unofficial 40. We've had some practice access this week. We've had a lot of stuff going on with hoops, with the big announcement from Trae Young. Was that just yesterday? It seems like that was like 3 days ago.
I think it was 2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah.
Monday.
So Josh is getting ready for spring tours and all that good stuff, and we'll talk a little bit of recruiting on here as well. But welcome in, boys.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. We're here.
Eddie's getting younger by the minute, Josh. He's on a new drug.
Oh.
Crack cocaine.
Good stuff?
I wish.
Oh.
No, I'm the great Will Douglas, and we'll tell you more about Cody Drug here in a little bit, but he sent up some samples of some stuff that I don't know. I don't even know what it is, but I just inhale it and go on about my day.
Here's what happens when Joe Jr. comes into the office. Everybody gets brave because he's on so many supplements. Nothing is bad for you. He just grabbed stuff and left the other day. Like,
what is it called?
NAD plus.
Oh no, I thought it was nepotism. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Is there any truth that
he is my my medical advisor though.
He's mine too.
Joe Jr. is.
We run fast and loose around here. Any truth that you wanted Will to change the name of his pharmacy to Cosby Drug?
No, not at all. Keep the jokes. I'll do the jokes, Carrie. You can continue on.
Anyway, okay. Talk funny, man.
There's nothing to say. It's more of a spur of the moment. I'm not doing a stand-up routine. I have nothing else to say. But we do love Cody Drug.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Out of practice yesterday, got to see watching the one-on-one stuff yesterday. That's the best part of the spring so far. And
it's just funny, like, that is the best part of the spring so far, but it was 13 plays probably.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't,
I don't know how much
a ton,
it was.
but, just to see an entire team form a circle around a bunch
I will
of guys.
say, though, this is how I know that it was the best part of the spring that we've had, because people were bitching and complaining about David Stone's rep. Not reps, rep.
Yeah, his one
rep. And then people were mad that John Mateers, the quarterback, and some of the one-on-one stuff, saying that he could be rolled up on.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is good.
I did not see that.
This is good.
Also, your takeaway from it should be, and at least my takeaway from it, was the offensive line, and again, it's one rep for each guy.
One rep.
The offensive line held up pretty
By the
well,
way,
I thought,
one
in those reps.
person I saw overreacting is the right way to put it, but Gerald McCoy was going after people.
I like that, though. I like that.
That's great.
And I would love for him to come work with David Stone. That'd be amazing.
But wouldn't it have been bad if R. Mason Thomas or PJ and guys, I mean, I guess it'd be good either way you look at it. Like if they were just running by your offensive linemen in that drill too.
Oh, it's all positives, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean, you spent all last year with a shitty offensive line, and then you have, 5 reps where they all pretty much hold their ground. I'd say maybe Jacob Sexton was he against R. Mason?
Well,
and then
Luke Baklenko got beat by R. Mason.
He got beat pretty good, and that was the most glaring one. But you have a shitty offensive line, and they're the ones that perform the better, and then it's Panic City. But you know what? That just means that we're back.
I will say
spring football is back.
Very much back.
I will say I know it was only a few reps, like Eddie said. I had several reporters from other schools reach out and be like, I wish we got this kind of access. And I did reply like, well, this was 5 minutes, and it's the only time we've ever gotten anything like this, but it was nice. It was nice to see some of that.
Yeah, most of what we see are just individual drills, like footwork drills, and like Will Chavis was working a lot with the defensive ends yesterday, kind of working through double teams, and then he got over to the side. And, you know, it's amazing, guys, that I think with Chavis is just like how many guys just love him. Like that was kind of almost a theme yesterday in the post practice, where guys just talking about how much they love Will Chavis.
Why do you keep saying Will Chavis?
Who's
Will Chavis?
Miguel Chavis, sorry. I haven't taken my neurogum.
Usually it's like a name. I'm like, okay.
I haven't. I suffered my first loss of the week.
Unbelievable.
I didn't take my neurogum this morning. Whatever. Trust me, Josh, I've been asking for it. I've just been dominating the office with little factoids. And they're just waiting like a pack of wolves to pounce, and now they get to pounce.
Josh, none of that's happened.
Usually I'm like, okay, I see how he got there. And I'm like, who is Will Chavis? I looked it up. He's an assistant basketball coach at Drexel. I don't think that's someone on your radar.
No,
so
I love what he's doing. I love what he's doing with the program up there, though.
You were talking about degenerates, Mr. Funny Man. He had 2 Crown games that he was just invested in yesterday. like it was watching the NBA Finals and the Thunder were in him.
DePaul plus 28.5.
Win and win. Win and win. That's my only comment. I will say I do not remember talking to anybody about Chavis, but yeah, they love him. I don't. Who were you speaking of? Somebody in general?
I can't remember who it was that we were talking.
Did we talk to any DNs yesterday?
No,
I think I might have been.
I mean, we talked to PJ last week.
Nothing sparked in the memory. The memory's gone.
Okay. And I did think that talking to some of the – I thought yesterday's, like, just from, like, top to bottom, from all the guys that we talked to was fantastic. Talking to Sammy Omosigho more about the middle linebacker and taking over at the mic, which, George, we talked about on the practice report on Monday. I guess the scrimmage breakdown, if you want to watch that on the Scoop YouTube channel. It seems like Sammy Omosigho is really pushing for a lot of playing time coming up this year alongside whomever it may be over at the Will, but
it'll be Kip.
Sure.
But I think Sammy. I would not be surprised if he ended up winning that job. That's how well he's playing right now.
It's good.
And he was just.
I was going to ask George if you feel like that's real, because I've heard some of that same talk, and I'm like, is that trying to spur him and keep him pushing Kobe, or how real is it?
I mean, I would bet that Kobe ends up being the starter at the beginning of the year, but if you told me, partway through the season, Sammy's getting more reps there, it would not surprise
I think the thing you should take from it is, this was a linebacking core that lost, Danny Stutsman, Jaren Kanak moved to tight end. Like, you were worried about, like, what kind of depth is that going to have? We didn't know what Sammy Omosigho would, how he would fare, because he was playing a lot of cheetah last year. But it sounds like from, just George talking about it and other people, like he's really fitting in well in the middle. And so now you have him, and now you have everybody raving about Kendal Daniels and how well he's playing.
Yeah.
So now you have 4 guys there that you can probably count on. And just like with Stutsman, it's not like he played every snap of the game. He played the majority of them. So you probably want to have a Mike that is going to play the majority of reps. But all those guys will get playing time, and I think be pretty effective.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like they don't like Kobe McKenzie. Kobe McKenzie's a good player, and I think they really like him. And I mean, even Sammy said yesterday he's maybe the smartest guy they have on defense. So he's going to continue to play a lot. And maybe they have some situations where they have Sammy and Kobe out there, at the same time in different looks. So I just think that they really like Sammy's potential, and we've seen it. We've seen flashes from Sammy, and I just think he's starting to feel more comfortable, whereas the last 2 years he's kind of been that like emergency backup at Cheetah and hasn't really, and he was good at Cheetah, but I don't think that's his natural position, so he's starting to find that. And then the other guy I'd mentioned is Taylor Heim, and we've talked about it. I think he's going to see the field. I don't know where exactly, either Will or Cheetah, but I think they're going to find a role for him. He's certainly somebody that's turned some heads.
I saw PFF College put this out this morning, but I think when you put the numbers to it and just what they're going to have to replace when you lose somebody like a Danny Stutsman, 34 tackles. This is since 2022. So over the last, I guess that'd be 3 seasons. 2022, 2023, 2024. 34 tackles for loss, 86 run stops. Those both ranked first. I would assume among linebackers, and then 87.6 run defense grade, which ranked 5th from PFF.
Yeah.
Also, I thought was interesting yesterday is Sammy was talking about how much he talks to Danny Stutsman still about playing the position, and it sounds like Danny's been more than willing to help those guys if they need it.
Yeah, and I think he's been around the building quite a bit this spring since pro day and stuff. I think we
saw Ethan Downs out there yesterday too.
Yeah, I think
I didn't even see Ethan out there.
He was over there with the defensive ends. Yeah, just kind of shadowing Miguel Chavis.
Yesterday was kind of the first time that I didn't really stick with the defensive ends much. I spent a lot of time with the wide receivers because that was the first time I was kind of down in that area of the field. It was the first time that we had been able to kind of get access to that corner.
We had to scramble to get over there when we realized what was going on. Yeah,
it was nice. I liked it.
Any guys in that group stand out to you, Eddie?
Not really. I mean, I think that Giovanni Gibson definitely sticks out just because of his
he's so big
physique. But I think because going in and having just talked about Isaiah Satania in the scrimmage report that we did on Monday, I got a lot of him, and I can definitely see him being somebody that just going through running routes. I mean, it wasn't like they were doing a whole lot, but I don't know. Made myself kind of daydream about what could be, and then talking to him afterwards, I thought what he said about Mateer and just kind of his aura that surrounds him, those are the things that you want to hear at this time of the year. Those are the things that you want to have the other players bring up kind of unprovoked, if you will.
Somebody who stood out to me yesterday that I hadn't really noticed before is just how physical Amarian Robinson is.
Yeah.
Even compared to the other guys, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely it's hard to explain. I think that, have you used the Ante Jones comparison before, Josh, with Omarion? It definitely, maybe it's because they both start with O, and your mind just goes there, but there is something there. It's a couple times I've looked out and been like, okay, who's number 2 again? Omarion, that's right.
Yeah, there is, and it's the same kind of deal because even when, he was playing like a true safety, he was so his movement was constant. Like he's constantly talking and moving, and that's what I remember of Ante. I know there's some people listening to us that are like they don't really remember that guy, but it was just kinetic energy. The more he moved, the more energy he seemed to have, and that's kind of what you get from Amarion. Now he's a little quieter. You don't notice him out there quite as much in the way that Ante was so flashy and kind of in your face. But yeah, there is some similarity in the build, in the way they could play. Again, he's a guy that if he's at Oklahoma for a couple years, I just don't see a lot of ways he's not a good football player. I don't know if he'll be a superstar or whatever, but I just would be very surprised if he's not very successful.
And I should put out the qualifier, in comparison to Robert Spears-Jennings and a Michael Boganowski, those guys are a little bit night and day different from somebody like Amarion. Robert Spears-Jennings, he continues to look incredible every time that we see him.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys listened to Josh Pate's interview with Brent Venables this past week, but Brent went out of his way to talk about Robert Spears-Jennings, almost in the same way that he would go out of his way to talk about Billy Bowman. I think they're expecting. It's hard to live up to Billy Bowman and how good he was the last couple years, but I do think they're expecting that sort of leap from Robert, and we saw it last year, especially early in the year. He was incredible. So can he be that good consistently the whole season, stay healthy, all of that? I'm more interested in what's going to happen at the other safety spot because we just haven't seen. Peyton Bones obviously missing the entire spring.
Yeah,
what does that look like?
He's out there, but he's not out there, kind of thing. For the same matter, and talking about the quarterback room, I thought somebody that stuck out to me yesterday that I told George when we got back, I feel like we always kind of just overlook him when we're talking about the quarterback position, is Devon Jordan. I thought he looked really good yesterday, just in the in the very, very limited time that we talked or that we were out there watching. He's somebody that I just feel like we always kind of forget about, and he played a little bit last year as a freshman.
And they say he's the fastest guy on the team.
I had heard several people through winter, not the winter stuff, but like the pre-bowl stuff that he had really come on, and it seemed like they were able to get him more snaps in practice and that kind of stuff, and it seemed like it all started to click a little bit for him. So that doesn't shock me. But even as a recruit, I thought he was a little overlooked. Like I mean, he's not 6'1", but he's really long, and he's physical, and he's comfortable playing DB. And as far as like in-state, I think for years, I mean, this goes through multiple coaching staffs. I'm not just saying like, oh, this one guy, but for whatever reason, Union, I just like the way their DBs play ball. Like I tend to like them on tape a lot.
It's very difficult, especially with defensive backs, because we just don't get to see a whole lot of, scrimmage stuff with them and what they're doing. Like we said, they did some one-on-ones yesterday, but it was short. And you just don't really get to see guys cover. You don't get to see guys drop back in coverage. What their ball skills are when the ball's in the air against a full offense. But I will say, I think there's one guy right next to Devin Jordan, jersey wise. I think Reggie Powers looks really good out there, and he's another guy that got some playing time last year, and was even. I think at one point he was like the third cheetah. He would have been the third cheetah to go in the game.
I think all three of those guys are going to be somewhat connected forever. Michael Boganowski, Jaden Hardy, and Reggie Powers. They're all three expected to make a monumental, gargantuan jump here as they move into their second year in the defense. And you just hope that it comes a little bit earlier for some of those guys than some of the other guys that we've talked about, where maybe year three has always kind of been that key to unlock whatever they have. What are you laughing about, Josh?
Well, I've got a hilarious. It's real quick. I'll be brief. I got a really funny note on Reggie Powers. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were like, and I was like, I'm kind of hearing good things. And they said, the 21 kind of pissed him off. And I was like, the 21? I keep thinking, and like it kind of sounded like it was his motivation. I was like, 21. I'm like, is that how many snaps he took last year? So I go back and look on PFF, and he took 21 snaps last year, and clearly has used that as like a motivational tool. Like he does not want 20 snaps again in the season. I thought that was kind of hilarious that he knew how many he'd taken.
I think we could live in a world where he got 20 snaps a game.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just really fascinating what they're going to do at Cheetah, because Kendal Daniels, I think, has started to really perform well there. And they love his size and versatility, but Reggie Powers, I think, is pushing to maybe be the starter there. And it, a lot.
Where does Kendal Dolby fit into everything?
That is what it all comes down to. Is what is Kendal Dolby's situation? How healthy is he? What does he look like? Do they try and move him back to corner because they need some depth there? I don't know, but I can tell you, Kendal Daniels and Reggie Powers, those are the two front runners, I would say, for that starting Cheetah spot. Maybe they play both those guys.
What I find interesting, like over there with the linebackers yesterday, and I've noticed this multiple occasions, but they have. I know that Kendal Daniels, is in the plans at Cheetah, but he's working like right next to the inside linebackers, and Taylor Wine's doing the same thing. Like they're in that
Taylor Heim,
yeah.
Oh, that's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Heim and Wine, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be trouble.
It won't be until they start playing.
I can see
I think they're both going to play this year.
I think so, too.
I really do. I think Taylor Wine's going to play a lot. Maybe not a lot. He's going to play. I don't know how he fits into that defensive end group, but you're right. Like I think that there's a bunch of guys that we could sit here and think that they're going to play quite a bit this year.
Well, and there's just so many guys that are playing multiple positions.
Sure.
Like there's so many guys that are working, like Kerry said, Kendal Daniels will be out there in individual, and he's running with the will, but then, you'll see him go over and maybe do some cheetah stuff. And like you see several guys doing that sort of thing on defense where they're playing guys at multiple spots and just kind of being versatile. So I don't know. It's and there's just so many question marks with guys being out, like Peyton Bowen, Gentry Williams, Kendal Dolby. Like all three of those guys could be starters for Oklahoma if they're healthy. But if they're not healthy, like who are the next guys up? Do you move guys around? what does that look like? And you just have so much young talent.
By the way, for a guy that's like quote unquote limited, Gentry Williams does a lot.
Yeah,
when he's out there, at least when we're out there, which I think should be.
I think that's part of the thud
should
stuff.
Should be taken as good news. I would imagine
Yeah.
though that he's moving around on his legs and looking good. I mean, obviously it was a shoulder that kept him out, but.
Guys, somebody was asking me in board chat, and I thought it was something I hadn't really thought about. But if you could say Robert Spears-Jennings, Peyton Bowen, and Gentry are all healthy this year, how good do you feel about that secondary? I'm like, that adds up pretty fast. If you could get, I mean, again, that's unlikely just based on history, but that seems like a great starting point if it could happen.
What I find interesting watching the defensive ends yesterday, George, is, good God, I'm going to be called on Taylor Wine, defensive end. I mean, like, he is listed at almost 270, but he doesn't look that big. Like, all these guys have a lot of weight on the rosters, but when you watch him out at practice, like Danny Okoye, I mean, he
what's he listed as?
250.
250. See, I think they have a good mix of guys that are maybe heavier and then guys that are maybe more light. Like R. Mason Thomas is a lighter guy. What's he listed? Like 250, maybe even 240?
Is 249.
249. Marvin Jones Jr., I don't think he's super, he's like 250.
He's got to be 240. What number 8 is his number?
This is great podcasting.
That's why we need the rosters around the office.
255. You tried to throw him away yesterday.
I tried to throw away rosters from 2022, and you guys lost your minds.
Well, I lost my mind.
Might need those.
When they're
Marvin
listed
Jones
online.
Jr. is 255.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think they have a good balance.
Adepaju is like 269 or something like that.
Well, he's listed as 261, but he's much bigger than that. He's closer to 270. But
now he's the guy you look at and you're like, okay, well that guy's big, but he moves so well. You're like, it doesn't matter what he weighs.
I like the defensive end.
He's a perfect person. PJ Adebawore is a perfect looking person.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, they just need him to. What was it that we had Trace in the office yesterday? And Trace was talking about he's going to be a superstar. Isn't that what he said?
He said that he is going to be a generational talent.
That's crazy. I guess it's not crazy. He looks like it. We just got to see it on the field.
I will say this, though. Knowing Trace and doing a radio show with him for 2 years in the mornings, he tends to hype up people a lot.
Yeah.
But he does. He's
riders.
not lying. I mean, he is in awe of PJ Adebawore.
Over under 4.5 sacks for PJ this year.
I think that'd be equaling his current career total, right? Because I think it's at 3.5. Is that what we said during one of the shows last week? I would go. Let's go under, but I think he pushes. Like, I think that could be a situation that he gets. Now, you could sell me on. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I bet he could get 2.5 in the first 3 weeks. Yeah. Is that crazy? Like in non-conference play, just beating up on some scrub tackle from Illinois State.
By the way, here's another one. Nigel Smith is 279.
I'm all in on Nigel Smith.
He looks awesome.
279.
He's bigger than that too. He's not playing defensive end anymore. He's moved inside to defensive tackle. I bet he's up to like 285, 290.
Did you say that Brent was working a lot with him yesterday with the defensive line group?
Brent spent almost the majority of his time with the defensive tackles and was working a lot with Nigel Smith.
Love that.
Which I thought was interesting.
And David's special in there if it all comes together.
And David Stone, I think, has put on really good weight. I mean,
he sounded great yesterday post-practice. I mean,
you'd want to go check out the interview that we posted on the Sooner Scoop editorial page. Bob was there for the entirety of I think it was 8 or 9 minutes. And I don't know, Josh, just knowing David a little bit from the high school ranks, I think that there was always this, not necessarily a concern, but there were always kind of questions about, maturity-wise, was he going to be ready to make the leap? Then he made that move to IMG, and it was very apparent when he came back. And we ran into him at one of the summer camps when he was still down at IMG, that maybe the light had kind of clicked on. It definitely, he says all the right things. Now it's just about going out and doing it on the field, which I don't have any concern about.
Yeah, for me with David, it was always, is he going to apply himself the way he needs to? Because he'd always been bigger, faster, and stronger than everybody, and he just never been challenged. And I thought IMG provided a little bit of that. And I've told the story before, when I went to see him his senior year, David was like the last guy out of the locker room. And like for a while, I was like, oh God, is he not playing? Like I had a real concern for a moment. And then he pops out, and I think he had like 2.5 sacks and 4 tackles for loss. He was dominant in the game. And, they were trying to block he and Jaden Jackson on it was a high school team from like Jersey or something.
Didn't go well.
Not prepared. No, it was a massacre.
It went well for us, though. Great video.
Yeah, the video was incredible, and there was like nobody there. IMG is not a bad place to shoot because it's well lit and there's no one on the sidelines.
Big pause there.
What happened?
Just Eddie being Eddie.
I mean, I don't know if we can say that these days.
He just wants someone else to get color bars since he got him yesterday.
I
Seems
thought
racist.
That may have been perfectly done in the way that it was even whatever people believe was said is probably even better than what was actually said. No offense to Eddie there, but
well, one more thing on David Stone too. I'm sorry, Josh, but talking. I was there, standing there when he was doing, his interview yesterday, and it was a lot of talk of maturity. Here's the thing, Josh. I don't think a lot of people understand some of these guys, these highly ranked guys, the world that they fall into that they've never had to deal with before when they have a bunch of money all of a sudden and they have all of a sudden become kind of the breadwinner for their families and, they can take care of, people in their family. And sometimes, parents will leave jobs because they've got, their kids getting all this money now and they want to, it's one of those things like, I'm not saying David's dealing with it, but a lot of guys are dealing with that stuff to where they have to learn not just how to play football at a higher level and train and be, have a very difficult time management, situation on their hands with all the stuff in school and weightlifting and, practice and film study. Then you have to deal with the financial side of it that they never had to mess with before. And I think that's kind of he's been one of those guys that's kind of had to deal with that and it's come out the other side seemingly, kind of figuring this thing out.
Well, and Kerry, I mean, to that line of thinking, like people that are like, oh, a bunch of money, well, that's a big problem. Guys, I mean, I remember how jarring it was watching that 30 for 30, the NFL, I'm broke now or whatever, like the whole deal where guys had just splashed through a massive amount of money in a short amount of time. Those guys are 22, 23, 24-year-old men. Like, these are high school guys. These are 18, and all of a sudden they've got more money than they've ever known what to do with. And they're no different. They've got friends pulling at them and family. And I'm not saying David's that one, but David clearly walked into a decent payday. So, like, there's a lot for him to have to judge. And, again, I know a lot of people, even maybe some locally, I think it's fair to say, I don't think it would surprise David to hear it. We're like, well, I don't know how he's going to handle that. Like, I think that may poison the well a little bit. And, guys, I don't know about you all, but all I've ever heard is David has done everything they've asked of him. Like, he's been there on time. He's put in extra work. Like, and it shows because he looks outstanding.
Yeah.
And has put on probably 25 pounds since he got there.
And that's even going into last year when he was a true freshman. And I think it could have been very easy to be defeated mentally, I guess, when you are the prized recruit coming in from IMG. And then it's your best friend that's the guy that's the All-American that everybody is talking about and talking about Jaden Jackson. I think that that can really screw a kid up. And you're right. Like, we haven't heard anything on the opposite side of that. He's always been even last year when they were going through everything in the freshman season, it was David Stone that was being the guy that was the first one in and kind of the last one out type of guy.
I think what we're saying is David Stone has he's gotten some vision.
Ready.
He's gotten some vision of the future and what it can look like if he handles things the right way. Just like Mr. Eddie Radosevich has vision that sees the future.
I think they wrote this just for me. The world may seem a little uncertain to us Sooner fans, but one thing is clear. LASIK at Enjoy Vision brings life into focus. They're giving away $1,000 for LASIK, and that's all you got to do is schedule a free consultation. If you're so inclined, go to enjoyvision.com. That is the letter NJOY vision.com to save $1,000 on LASIK and start seeing the good around you. because there is so much good to see in this world, isn't there? Huh? Enjoy vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
You totally caught me off guard there with that. Anyway.
With what?
Whatever that was.
Everything is, I think that there is a lot of positive in the world right now.
Well, that's good. And you know what? It's probably because you're on NAD+.
That's right.
You don't have to mess with... Man, I really can't read this. You don't have to mess with Schmitty in the summertime to get in better shape or feel your best. If you're looking for more energy, better focus, or just want to stay ahead of the game, check out NAD+ injections from Cody Drug. Look, this is the next big thing. Tons of Hollywood celebrities are doing it and talking about it all over social media. But you don't have to run off to Los Angeles in the middle of the night to feel better. It's quick and easy. Just head to CodyDrugRx.com. That's CodyDrugRx.com. Book a short telehealth visit, and your NAD+ injection or nasal spray, that's what Eddie's on. He likes stuff up the nose. Ships out the very next business day. Cody Drug Custom Compounds, everything in their state-of-the-art sterile lab, including specialized medications for men's health, weight loss, anti-aging, and more. And also, they love working with Oklahoma med spas and clinics. So if you're in the healthcare business, they're ready to team up. Again, that's CodyDrugRx.com. Feel better, faster, without the stadium steps. And thanks to Will Douglas of Cody Drug RX, great NIL supporter of OU football as well.
It kind of goes in the same vein of just kind of being ready, getting more health, I guess, conscious. Have we told George what we signed him up for yesterday?
We have not, no.
Well, unfortunately, I have retired from bike riding, and I'm not participating, but we signed George up. He's going to participate in a half marathon on a bicycle around Campus Corner.
I could do that.
The people came by yesterday, and it's a bike race that you're going to participate in.
There's signage right out there.
I can do that.
The starting hub is Sooner Scoop headquarters.
Sure.
You're gonna lead them out.
A bike for 13 miles is not that bad.
Well, that's what you're going to be doing. It's going to be fun.
Sure.
It's during June.
And you'll be running it, right?
Sounds like a great
I retired from
Eddie actually
competitive
refused
running
to sign the petition.
Since the Tour de France did the disgusting acts to Lance Armstrong, I don't support inline bike riding anymore.
All right. Just going to breeze on through.
We didn't do that. They are having a bike ride around Norman, though.
I don't know what
race.
inline bike riding is, but I'm for it.
Is that not what it's called? Isn't it something like that?
I think you're thinking of inline skating.
Oh.
Like rollerblading.
I do like watching
called
the final stages
touring,
of the Tour de
isn't it?
France.
Yeah.
Oh, I do too. I've always liked that. That's.
I would definitely.
I
You should go to
can't
Tulsa
imagine.
Tough.
That's really what this thing is.
This is the same
are
people
trying
that
to
do the
it.
Tulsa event.
Oh,
They're
cool.
doing this.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
they did come by though. We didn't sign you up, but it does sound
And I
like
did
a cool
sign their
event.
petition saying I'm okay with them.
I
want to say how much I appreciate that George was down for it. He was ready. He was going to do it.
Riding a bike for 13 miles is not that difficult.
Well,
You make a lot of claims, George.
No, if you could do that around
I
Lake
guarantee
Hefner
you,
on a windy day,
guarantee you I could ride
it's
a bike
like
for 13
hell.
miles.
I could do that, and I'm fat and out of shape. George could absolutely do it.
My cousin,
I back him.
my cousin and my uncle used to do that all the time. They would ride their bikes around Lake Overholser, Josh, over in your neck of the woods.
Oh, yeah.
And I went with them one time when I was like 11, I think. I distinctly remember this. We got like a half mile in. I was like, I don't think I want to do this. And I went back to the car and waited.
Were you like on a dirt bike?
No, it was like a
10 speed?
Sure. It was just like a regular bicycle. I don't know. That was kind of the end of my bike riding days, though.
I love hearing stories about your youth.
That's it. That's the one.
And it didn't involve, demolishing anything.
No, that was my adolescence, I think. My childhood was filled with joy and laughs and ha-has and hearts.
Okay, back to practices and OU football. The Crimson Combine thing. You're starting to hear advertisements for it. It still doesn't really tell you a whole lot about. I still can't believe people are going to pay $10 to go to this, not really knowing what it is.
I would like some type of schedule. My question is, do we need to be there? Are we going to it?
I don't know.
That's my question. I'm missing a bachelor party for this. This better be good.
I mean, I'll probably end up going just because.
I mean,
it might be our only chance to ever hear from Brent.
We're going.
Are we talking to players after? Like, is there like?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of media opportunities we'll have, but we'll definitely be there just to see what it is.
I mean, we haven't gotten Brent for 5 minutes after spring practice. This might be our only chance to hear from him.
At the very least, that's what I'm thinking. Is like some type of like end of the spring press conference to talk to Brent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's because we haven't asked. That's certainly the case. We've asked. I know that the SID staff has done their part in trying to get Brent to talk.
And he just doesn't want to.
He just hasn't done it yet. I don't know. Like, what is the... I have thought about this though. What are the big questions that Brent needs to answer?
Well, it's not like big questions as much as it is like we just want to know about the team, and like I don't think it's anything.
And I agree with you. I'm just saying.
We just want to hear how spring's going, and
we want to hear what players he sees that have made a jump.
Brent's busy. I get it. Like there's no problem with that, but it'd be great to talk to him and just ask him about certain guys and the offensive line and wide receivers and some of the guys on defense, the young corners, and
Brent, you're welcome to come to the Scoop offices anytime and talk to us.
Yeah, and I'm not mad. I'm not mad at Brent. It's part of our job. We'd like to talk to the head ball coach.
What is? I guess we'll go this way. What is, like, with everything that we've known, the best thing that we've known about spring to date? Because I mean, we are like basically at the end of it. They have 4 practices left, I think.
Yeah,
3 or 4, maybe another scrimmage in between. What's the best thing that's coming out and maybe the most concerning thing that's coming out?
Best thing for me is John Mateer is certainly living up to the expectations so far. At least that's what it sounds like, as well as I'm going to say this is actually the best thing. It sounds like the offensive line is actually performing somewhat decently. And that's not to say they're out there great. They've had some days that haven't been great. But it does sound like they like the pieces they've got on the offensive line. We'll see how it comes together, and they need some guys to get healthy. But I would say that's a positive, that it hasn't been like last year where all we heard was how bad the offensive line was in spring practice, as well as the quarterback. And we kind of brushed it off, like hand up. We brushed that off a lot last year.
Yeah.
I can confidently say we're not hearing those same things. That doesn't mean it's going to be, sunshine and rainbows, but that is good. The most concerning thing, I would say kicker. Doesn't sound like that's going very well. And
is that because they're missing or because they just don't maybe have a guy?
I think both.
Maybe is it all kind of going hand in hand?
Yeah, I think it's both. That's concerning. And tight end, I would say.
Yeah.
The fact that no one's really... It's Will Huggins and Jaren Kanak are your 2 tight ends that have been the most talked about. And it's concerning that a guy like Devon Mitchell, and we've talked about it, we just haven't heard a whole lot about. And that doesn't mean he's having a bad spring, but it probably also means he's not having the spring that you hoped for.
It's one of those things, like I just feel like if you got a coach in the hallway and you were just like, what's the deal with Devon Mitchell? I don't think you would get a very positive report.
Maybe. I don't know. And that's the hard part is, like, I wish we could talk to Brent and say, what's going on with Devon? Like, how's he doing? Like, how's he coming along? And maybe he's coming along great, and we just haven't heard about it.
Sure.
And that's the hard part is, like, it's not like that. We're not going and asking people like, oh, well, how's Devon Mitchell doing? And they're just like, well, he's just been terrible.
But
like, that's not the feedback.
There is a certain level of like feedback that you get that, okay, everybody you've talked to and everybody that we've heard and even seen on video, Giovanni Gibson's having a really good spring. He's made a good impression. Isaiah Satania, same thing. He's making noise. He's
sounds
making
like from
plays.
what you said that Burks is starting to come on a little bit.
Yeah, Burks is. Yeah, now that he's finally healthy, it sounds like he's making plays. And that's the thing is like,
is that because the wide receivers are actually that good, or is John Mateer that good?
I think it's
or is it a little bit of both?
I think a good quarterback makes your receivers better.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a bit of both. And
look at Baker. I mean, Baker, what was the guy from A&M that he made a really good receiver in Cleveland? Peoples-Jones or whatever? Was that his name, Josh?
Yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones, kid from Michigan.
Like, you never heard of that guy again after he was catching touchdown passes all the time for Baker. Like, and he's done it, with the McMillan kid from Washington this year in Tampa Bay. Like, he resurrected Sterling's career a little bit.
I I also think it's.
I mean, that's just one example of a good quarterback makes everyone better.
I also would say it's somewhat the offensive scheme. Like from what I understand, there's been plays where they're just got guys running open, and that's part of Ben Arbuckle's
stuck
offense.
out to me from what Satania said yesterday.
Yeah,
and for some reason it was PTSD, but it bounced in the back of my brain when we would come back on like Sundays or Mondays and rewatch like some of those early games before shit really hit the fan last year, and I remember we had what's his name, Rodgers' brother, Aaron Rodgers.
Jordan.
Aaron Rodgers would have been interesting. Jordan Rodgers. We have a lot to talk about if Aaron Rodgers wants to come on the program, though. Future Pittsburgh Steeler. But I remember we had Jordan Rodgers on. He was like, "There's guys that open down the field," and Satania yesterday basically said like the summary was, if you're open, he's going to find you.
Yeah, and look, there's also negative things I'm sure happening in practice. Things that they need to get better on. I also think it's hard because I get a lot of times like, oh, you're just sunshine pumping, and it's like, well, the people we talk to do like to give us the good. There's not a whole lot of times they're like, hey, let me tell you about all the bad shit that's happening in practice.
It would be like if you watched a video on Huddle and you were pissed off because no bad plays were on it. Well, there are not going to be any bad plays on a Huddle video. It's just not going to happen.
So
I love the comment of, and this comes up when we're talking about like, signing day and stuff, but his highlights are great. Well, yeah, they usually are.
Right.
They're highlights.
I do think that John Mateer will probably have quite a few balls batted down at the line of scrimmage just because of his delivery.
He does do a lot of like, sidearm. He works on his arm angle a lot.
The one thing, too, that we haven't heard we did hear it last year with Jackson Arnold, was the turnover thing. Like, that's one thing that I haven't heard a lot of, issues on turnovers.
Yeah.
And
the defense is forced turnovers like in the scrimmage, but that was off Jet New.
Yeah, well, and trust me, we would all hear the same thing. It would be like, he looks really good at times, but man, does he turn it over.
Well, and last year, too, this was when we started hearing the rumblings of like, well, Michael Hawkins is kind of pushing, and not to say Michael Hawkins isn't having a good spring, but we don't hear really any of that talk of like, well, Michael Hawkins is just.
It's almost like it was from the first day when we talked to Mateer for the first time, when he was so open about being the quarterback, like, and even talking to Satania or any of the guys from the offensive side, even somebody like a Derek Simmons yesterday. Not only has it been a good thing that he's been around and he's able to kind of be that extra coach out there because of his knowledge of the offense, but when they talk about the quarterback, they're talking about John Mateer. Like, there is no question about whose team this is.
I'll say this: if you want my biggest positive, just from viewing, alone, it's Ben Arbuckle, because he is so intense and so dialed in. Like, even when the offensive linemen were doing their one-on-ones against the defensive linemen, he was right in the middle of that, yelling at people and trying to help coach and stuff like that. But to me, offensive coaching staff is the biggest positive, because not only is it Ben Arbuckle, it's really weird still, but if you see what Kevin Wilson does every day at practice, like Bill Bedenbaugh is coaching. He's the coach. I'm not trying to start any kind of shit here. But like, Kevin Wilson is over there with his hands on his knees, just staring at people like a hawk.
It's noticeable.
And I asked Eddie Pierre-Louis about it yesterday, and I said, did you how does that work with Kevin Wilson? He said, Kevin tells me to smile every practice. Like, if he sees that I'm too into it or whatever, he's like,
Kevin Wilson getting soft? That doesn't sound like the Kevin Wilson that we know.
He did stop and talk to me for a second yesterday, so he might be getting soft. But he said, well, he'll take me aside later on and tell me this or that. So, like, this offensive line needed somebody. I mean, Bill is one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. That nobody can argue with that. But to have someone like Kevin Wilson that can be kind of almost a assistant to him, and I'm not saying it's good cop, bad cop, but having a different voice to reassure you that you're doing things the right way or you could be doing things better. I feel really good about this offensive line, with the setup that they have right now. I
mean, it's kind of sick that they were able to, and you can argue whether, how much of an effect that they'll have, but I don't think it's a bad thing having Kevin Wilson and Wes Goodwin around. I mean,
Wes is the same way with the linebackers.
They're
he's
essentially
just sitting
helpers.
there. He's just sitting there staring at everybody like a hawk.
I think it's a good thing. I don't know. And again, I don't know how much that equates. Are they going to win 10 games now?
And by the way,
I don't know.
The other takeaway I have is Nate Dreiling might be a crazy person.
I think he
the
is.
way people talk about.
We can drop the mic. I think
like
he
in a good
definitely
way.
is.
In a good way.
He is like maybe the most stereotypical linebackers coach that you could think of.
I mean, Omosigho essentially said he is a crazy person yesterday.
Yeah,
after practice,
he basically said he has like split personality disorder.
Guys, you were out there yesterday. Is there a linebacker coach for literally every linebacker? Like, they have so many guys out there.
Yeah, Dreiling,
Dreiling and Skalski.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
And Brent.
And like there's so many bodies to cover that position. But what I was going to say, and you guys were talking earlier about a chance to talk with Brent. In that paid interview, he talked about, hey, in 2023, we made a real jump. And I was running the defense and those kind of things. Did I miss it, or has it been clarified? Like Kevin Wilson could be kind of that guy like Matt Wells was to him, because we talk about he's going to do it like he did in 22 and 23, but he had Matt Wells there to kind of keep him abreast of what's going on while he's running the defense and doing all the things you have to do in game. Wilson makes sense for that role, but I don't know if that's the plan.
I think it is somewhat the plan, Josh. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I do think he'll have a headset in some regard and maybe help with that. I also think them having John Kozlowski, the quarterback's coach, is going to be huge, because that'll free up Arbuckle to not just be the QB's coach and the OC. Like, I think he can also be somebody in everyone's ear on clock management, things like that, and also just be the quarterback's guy and let Ben kind of be the almost head coach of the offense.
It's certainly an extension, and I think that, just having him, I know that we've talked a lot about Mateer and just being out there and helping guys, knowing where they need to be. I think that he's another guy that obviously has worked with these guys. They know what they're trying to do offensively, and especially, from a personnel standpoint, I would say. I'm sure that has helped as well.
Yeah, and look, this is a lot of positivity that we have going on right now. That doesn't make the schedule any easier. It also doesn't make it any easier that I don't know if they have an SEC caliber tight end right now on the team. I think they need a backup center, which we can get into what they're doing there. And I also still have some concerns about running back. And just I think Xavier Robinson has really emerged as like the guy in that room right now. But, you still want to see Taylor Tatum get better. I think you need to go get a guy in the portal maybe that's a veteran that has at least played a full season of football without injury. There's still a lot of concerns on that side of the ball, but I do think overall it sounds like things are good.
Better product.
Yeah, it's
just
a better
at
product.
the end of the day, it's going to be a better product.
By the way, how many times did we go out last year and we didn't even know Seth Luttrell was out there? And that's not, every coach has a different personality, but like it's night and day from what it was a year ago.
Well, the biggest difference, too, is you're seeing Brent go station to station. Like, he's not just sitting there overlooking the linebackers the entire time. He's going to offensive position groups. He's going to defense. He's just going from station to station all throughout practice. And by the way, I think it is Kuzieski. I'll have to go back, and I think they just call him Kuz.
Yeah,
but
we'll have to ask Halk. Halk was on our ass yesterday about pronunciations.
Well, he was on this guy's ass, pretty much. Eddie.
Yeah.
Me?
You're great at pronunciations, aren't you?
Oh, no. Halk didn't say anything to me about pronunciation.
He told Carrie and I that we need to check the...
He was showing us the people that
we were getting wrong.
There's a pronunciation guide on the actual
I'm never going to look
roster, and that we should work on it.
They earned their nickname. They earned their names. If you get better, as you
I will say, you guys did
field,
get one wrong earlier in the show. It's Davon Jordan, not Devon Jordan.
I thought I said Davon.
I don't,
because I thought I made like a conscious effort to say it correctly after you corrected me yesterday.
Davon Jordan.
Davon. Well,
because I thought I've always been
Day
saying
for now.
Yeah, I will not be calling him Day, but
I will. I think somebody else in the media will. We're down with the nicknames. Day.
We do have to get this on video sometime soon, because just you could have a drinking game with the number of times that Josh just buries his head in his hands.
It's not a call.
I am incapable of not expressing when I think something's funny.
This is a factual program. We only talk about the facts.
Okay, so you said that. What did you say you wanted to hit on?
The Stanford Center.
Yeah.
The
talk
portal
because,
and
I mean, as much as we've
possibilities.
talked about this offensive line, and I think that it's obviously headed in the right direction from where they were a year ago. It does seem like if you're talking about positions that they're going to be active in the portal, 1A is probably center, and then 1B is running back. Like I almost kind of, and I think quarterback,
or tight end,
quarterback / tight end,
corner. Or,
are we talking all 4 positions?
I think all 4 are pretty high priority, I would say.
So you think that they could bring in maybe 4 guys
or
in
more
the spring portal?
I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in more. Just and maybe they don't. It largely depends on what's the market.
Sure.
Who's in the portal.
Yeah, sure.
And I do think
seeing that happen though here over the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
As we get to April 16th, there's going to be more and more names. It's like the men's basketball portal that is bonkers right now. But I think that we do know of one name, and it's the kid from Stanford that has already set up a visit.
Yeah, Jake Mikailu, I think is how you say his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Started at center for Stanford last year. Started his career as a guard, but was Stanford's highest graded player on the offensive line a year ago. I think he made 11 starts at center. Nice player. I think OU really likes him, and he's visiting this week. I'm not sure when exactly, maybe this weekend. He's also visiting UCLA. Those are the 2 front runners early, but I know that is a position that I think Oklahoma's a little concerned about, just the depth. And we saw that last year. It just wasn't good enough, and they had too many injuries there. So while I think they like Troy Everett, I also think that this kid they feel like could maybe come in and, maybe push for that job. We'll see.
The biggest thing is if Troy Everett goes down, you could be screwed.
Yeah, they don't have a backup. I mean, it's Josh Isosa right now, and I think they like his potential, but you have to remember he's never played center. They tried to move him there last year. It wasn't pretty. He didn't get a whole lot of playing time. So I think that if they can get somebody like this kid who's played the position, at a Power 4 level, I know Stanford was terrible last year, but has played the position, it has good size, it would make a lot of sense.
So when you say we're talking a running back, tight end, a center,
Corner.
and a corner. Yeah.
And maybe, if the right linebacker appeared, if the right defensive tackle, appeared for the right price, it's just going to be difficult because I don't know what the budget situation is. Some guys are going to have to portal out, which I think is going to happen. But I would say those 4 positions are the ones to watch for OU right now. I wouldn't even be shocked at safety, just because
Kicker.
I wouldn't be shocked about kicker. But safety, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I think they like a lot of their young talent, but I think they also look out there and say, well, there's not a lot of guys that have played a lot of snaps, and Peyton Bowen hasn't been able to stay healthy. Robert Spears-Jennings, has had some injury issues in the past. I think all of those positions where you maybe have some really good young talent, but maybe not a ton of experience, OU might look to add.
I'll just say, no, go ahead, Josh.
Just a quick note on the Makula kid. For those that don't know, this is a Valor Christian guy from Colorado. Mm-hmm. Actually, high school teammates of Gavin Sawchuk. So there is they played some ball together. So there's some familiarity.
And Reagan Beers.
Oh wow, I didn't thought about that.
The Valor Christian to Norman pipeline.
Valor Christian. I mean, I will say
you would probably know Rocky and Rowdy.
Yeah,
probably played with him.
Probably did. He was pretty highly rated out of Colorado, the state of Colorado. I think he was like maybe a top 3 player in the state coming out of high school.
Visiting UCLA as well as Oklahoma.
Yep. I don't know. There might be
those 2 were the only that were
that were
put out
known
so
as
far,
of yesterday.
So we'll see. But
I'm kind of interested to see what they end up doing at running back. If there's anybody out there, obviously, if it's somebody that fits their criteria, they're going to go after.
Well, here's the thing too, and I haven't really been talking about this, but it's everybody's getting up in arms about like portal and when it's open and tampering and all that stuff. I was texting the other day with a Division I coach. Someone who's been a Division I coach, been a big recruiter, and he was like, it's these agents' jobs to always kind of take the temperature of, where a school is or what opportunities might be out there for their clients. So even if you're not talking portal being open, like Jim Nagy, with his contacts and all the agents that he knows, George would say basically anybody that represents an NFL player, he knows them.
Correct.
So if they're doing college kids, they're probably reaching out to him saying, hey, I've got a player I'm repping. He's thinking about getting in the portal. Like that stuff's going to happen. And that's why it's great for Oklahoma to have, a general manager position like this that has those contacts, that is not just a glorified recruiting coordinator. I think Jim Nagy probably has a list of guys that may go into the portal that they can evaluate and say, we like this guy or we don't like this guy.
Yeah, and I think he's also spent a good amount of his time the last few weeks evaluating the current roster. And don't be surprised if there's guys leave the program, and
he was out of practice again yesterday.
Yeah, and we also know that he's working on getting a good amount of money to go and spend in the spring portal. And that's why I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if they add 4 or 5 or 6 guys in the spring portal, just because we know that they're gearing up for it.
All right. That being said, Josh, here's the other thing that I've seen on the board recently. Like, are you irrelevant now? Does recruiting even matter anymore? I've had a lot of questions about our jobs and our business lately this last week.
It is inevitable. With recruiting, like, again, there's so much stuff that, like, people are like, oh, it's just NIL. That does, like, if a kid doesn't like the place or doesn't want to go there, you've got to spend money at an absurd rate. You could never fill your roster that way. Like, you even if you had the money to just go bananas, you couldn't work like that. So, like, the people that think, like, oh, it's just about money, there's basically a market. Like, okay, this is about what a running back goes for. This is about what a wide receiver goes for. And then, obviously, there's going to be some outliers. Guys, we see that in the NFL where one team just pays an obscene amount of money for something or someone
Deshaun Watson
that nobody else would pay that money for. Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson's a perfect example. Cleveland was competing in a market with no one. So that stuff happens. But generally, like, okay, this guy is he's a 1-year SEC starter. Whatever reason he's in the portal, he's probably going to get, and I bet you coaches could get within 10% of what that guy's probably going to get in NIL. They can get pretty close. So this idea that, like, it's just about money, it's not. Like, that you've got to have it, but everybody has it, especially, with the way now schools are all starting to understand that even if you're a Big Ten or SEC, I think we can all see 20 years down the road, if you're not trying to compete in those conferences, you may not be in those conferences. Like that, I think anybody that thinks anything is set in stone is just crazy.
Josh, if it was all about money, then Michael Fasusi and Elias Chavez would both be at Texas right now.
Absolutely. There's a number of guys like that. I mean, and there are some where OU guys. Jaden Jackson's a good example. I think Jaden Jackson, OU paid more than anybody else was ready to pay. And they look really damn smart for it now. Like, they look like, oh, that was a guy worth going all in on. So great, but there are other guys that do I think somebody probably could have given David Stone more money than he got? Yeah, I think that's possible if he really wanted to pursue it. But there's no question, guys. Michael Fasusi, it's not even close. Like, what Texas was willing to do there was astronomical and, frankly, kind of crazy.
Well, and it shows you that...
And that's no shot at Mike. Like, I love his talent.
It's insane.
It is what it is.
It shows you that recruiting is still a factor. And building relationships is still a factor. And playing style, relationship with a coach, or... It's just like you said with... I can't remember who it was recently... that came in on a visit and said that he just loved seeing how hard Bill Bedenbaugh coached people.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Deacon Schmidt mentioned that. I was talking to Noah Best this week, and he mentioned how much he liked just watching Bill work with the offensive line. Just like, because, and I think, guys, that's something that people don't understand sometimes. I think maybe even at times Bill has kind of gone after guys like, oh, they're so talented, and then they don't always buy into kind of what he is and what he's about. I feel like over the last couple of years, he's done a better job of like, this guy gets me. This guy understands what I'm going to expect, what I'm going to push him to. So when those guys come to practice, they're not overwhelmed. And Eddie, the thing that I can remember, because you remember this, and I brought it up several times because it just sticks out to me when a guy makes a comment that, like, we've done so many interviews. You hear the stuff that, I love Coach Bedenbaugh and the NFL production, all this stuff. But we did that interview with Michael Fasusi at Under Armour in Dallas. I misread it because he said something like, yeah, he kind of made it sound like their relationship was weird. Like, and it sounded bad.
Yes.
But what he was saying is it's unique. It's different than the other coaches because we talk ball. We talk about how I get better. We talk about all that stuff and not all this other stuff that doesn't matter to me. And I thought that was I just read it wrong.
It's one of those things that I think that oftentimes, and especially nowadays in the landscape that we're in, like everybody just wants to be able to point to one thing and say, that's the way of the world. You got to go through the portal. That's how you build a program. When I think everybody knows we're basically a year removed from sitting here and coming on during the Unofficial 40 or any of the shows on YouTube or the post-game podcast with Esther Lexus saying you can't build a program through the portal. You still have to recruit. You still have to build relationships. Now, and that's not to say that now when you combine a good recruiting class with filling in the spots of maybe a running back or an offensive center or wherever on the team that you need, you can marry those things, and that's how you become a powerhouse in today's college football. I mean, Ohio State hasn't just turned its back on high school recruiting. I think everybody's well aware of that. And then they also did go out in the portal, and they were able to get guys that were able to come in and contribute immediately from day one.
And Brent talked about that on the Pate podcast about just the roster turnover and how year over year they've tried to have less and less, and it's finally getting to a number that they actually like, where they're not having to add as many bodies in the portal. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach that now with Jim Nagy also kind of taking over that.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm looking at On3's transfer portal rankings. And, the team rankings. Number 1, Texas Tech. Number 2, Ole Miss. Number 3, LSU. 4, Oregon. Guys, it's not until number 10 that you get to a team that has played for a national title in the last 10 years. I guess Oregon being the last one with the Mariota team. And then you get all the way down. Ohio State's at 21. Look at their recruiting rankings. They're top 3 every year. Like that's portal is like where you go and fill out your roster. Okay, we're soft here. We can fix that. We can get a guy that can come in and help us immediately. Even maybe if it's a guy for down like a Troy Everett situation where Oklahoma took him, knew they probably didn't need him in year 1, but saw down the road, hey, we got a hole at center and we got to figure it out. And now Troy looks like he's going to be a really solid multi-year starter for him. So it's one of those things where it just has to be built through recruiting. I just believe that to my bones. Because you've got to develop, you've got to have time with these guys in your system. If you're just constantly churning out, a perfect example, Florida State, 2 years ago. Looks like Florida State's getting it all figured out. Look at Florida State's recruiting. They've been like 15 to 20 most years. Like they're not the Florida State of the Bobby Bowden era that was just reeling in 5-stars. They've focused a lot on the portal. And when you do that, you get volatility because if you just don't know what you're getting. So one year they'd hit it huge, and the next year they were just god awful. You think OU had a bad year last year? Florida State was 2-10. That's unthinkable following what they've done in 23.
It is interesting too. Somebody asked me the other day, when is the next time OU will have a starting quarterback that is a homegrown guy, a guy that they recruited and developed? And I guess last year is the answer. And Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins were both, recruits. But other than, a good one, I guess is what the question was phrasing. Because you have to go back a ways to be like, who's a guy that was, I guess it would be Trevor Knight, right?
Of an actual
guy that came in as signed with Oklahoma out of high school,
yeah,
and kept going, yeah.
And that's where it's interesting.
I thought the question was and stayed.
Yeah.
Like, that's Landry.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah, that finished out his career. I mean, look, Michael Hawkins has a chance next year.
I said Michael Hawkins could be the guy because if he sticks around, I think he could, be the answer as the starter. I don't know about next year just because who knows what John Mateer decides to do. I mean, if John Mateer has a fantastic year, he's going to go to the NFL. But if he has just an okay or good year, maybe he comes back.
I mean, think about it, though. 2 Heismans and 2 national championships, that's hard to turn down.
Guys, I had somebody ask me, like everybody keeps comparing this OU team, the 25 version, to 24. They're like, the offense is going to be better. I think we would all agree with that. There's almost no chance the offense isn't considerably improved. So they were like, who is a team that this team kind of reminds you of? And I was trying to think of the pieces and a little bit, and it kind of, in a way, reminds me of it would be 2022 Washington, where you had Kalen DeBoer come in. He brings Michael Penix from Indiana. They had all that familiarity. Ryan Grubb, the same deal. And they had some young defensive linemen, the Braylon Trice kid that went on. And it was like, that first year was kind of surprisingly good, but then all those parts came back for 23, and they go and play for the national championship. I'm not saying that's what OU is going to do over the next 2 years, but I see some parallels between kind of how the rosters were built and kind of where their strengths are.
That schedule should be easier, too, in 26, you would think.
Yes.
No, by then, Vanderbilt, Florida will be competing for a national title with DJ Lagway. And,
you have to go on the road to Michigan, too, in 26.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So. I did see the note from Ann Arbor. It sounds like they're going to probably start the true freshman up there, huh?
How can you pay him that money and not start him?
I
mean, it's.
I don't even know what would the other option be.
School that can. Yeah, it's the kid that I think transferred from Northwestern. Is that right?
Okay.
Cranky, something like that. I'm probably butchering the kid's name. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see any way because, guys, I mean, this dude he's special. Now, Mikey Keene, that's his name, Keene. He is. I don't know where I got Northwestern. It's Fresno State and Central Florida. I don't know where Northwestern.
Good player.
But they, I just don't know how you don't put him out there in the field because, guys, they're not winning a national championship at 25. They're thinking about 26 too. Like, okay,
sure,
we built all this together, add a few pieces in the portal, and maybe 26 we've really got something.
Yeah, I do think the quarterback thing is probably the most interesting thing that's got to work its way out because basically everybody that needs a transfer quarterback is in a desperation mode, which means they're going to pay a lot more. So it's strange that OU has 4 quarterbacks on campus right now. That seems like a lot of teams though are getting kind of away. I don't know if it's just because the patience of younger quarterbacks now, and they know they can't, until they can show themselves in college, they're not going to get a big payday from somebody if they were an evaluated recruit like a Jet New. I mean, he was committed to Oklahoma State, but there's not a lot of money out there for him if he wanted to transfer. So, all right, Josh, we mentioned quarterbacks. We talked about it on the recruiting report. The visits set for Bowe Bentley. What does that look like in terms of where OU sits on the visits? I mean, I know it sounds like you feel like LSU and OU are kind of the most intriguing teams in this thing with him. And I can't even remember the order. Is he at OU before LSU or is OU the last?
It's the second. It's the June 13th.
OU's in the middle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. He's got we'll run over it for those that haven't seen some of the information out there. Georgia, he's going to take an official 2 on June 6th, and then follow that up at Oklahoma on June 13th, and then finish his top 3, his kind of final 3 at LSU on June 20th. Now, why that's interesting to me is a couple of things, because A, like we talked about in the recruiting report, I am not aware of anybody else visiting that weekend on June 13th. Now, that may change. Maybe they say, okay, we're going to pivot this a little bit because that's the weekend we can get him in and we want some guys with him. Maybe, maybe Mason James pulls the trigger here before too long, or Aljur Miles or somebody like that. and hey, we've got the quarterback there with the receivers, and you try to get something going that way. The other thing is there has quietly been chatter for a while that this is not going to run until June. Kind of like the Jonathan Hatton situation where, I'm going to take those officials and then in June I'll make my announcement. And then one day he just kind of wakes up and it's like, nah, not doing that. There's kind of a similar feeling with Bowe Bentley, and it's not that surprising. I mean, quarterbacks don't run it out this long, not usually. And now Bowe was kind of a late emerger, and there's reasons his situation's a little bit unique, but he's visited all these schools. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. I still think if the Jaden O'Neal situation will play itself out to its conclusion, then maybe Oklahoma, maybe that official visit ends up being June 20th, and he's doing it helping OU recruit. Like that wouldn't shock me if that's how that plays out. Now, again, that's not anything I know. Bowe is very quiet, doesn't say a lot, so I'm kind of connecting the dots a little bit. But yeah, I still really like where OU is. I've always been told that it just didn't seem that likely he would get that far from home. So to see OU and LSU here, that just doesn't surprise me. I think that's probably what this comes down to. We talk about Georgia. If Jaden O'Neal were to end up at Georgia, then that door is probably closed. So it ends up being OU LSU anyway. So we'll have to keep an eye on kind of what is going to play out. But I still do like where OU is.
Well, let me ask you this: do you expect anything to play out with Jaden O'Neal before his visit?
I do. It's just, I don't know, and I know we've talked about it some as a group. You hear some different chatter that maybe, he's setting up other visits. I mean, checked out Florida State. We talked about him going to Georgia. I think you can expect more trips to happen here. He's looking around, and who could blame him? I mean, it's kind of the reverse of what we've seen, where Oklahoma's like, once you're committed to us, we're committed to you, and that kind of thing. Well, OU's clearly looking at another quarterback, and you can say, we wanted to take two or whatever. That's not usually how this works. So I get it. Like, I get why he's looking around. I get why he's kind of making sure if he needs to jump to another, island, he's got somewhere to go. And so I think he's kind of opening doors and making sure communication is there with other staffs. So, again, I just don't think Jaden O'Neal ends up in this class. That's just kind of where I'm at. Again, like I said on the recruiting report, if I'm wrong, I'll be here to own it, and that's okay. It doesn't feel like it's moving in the direction of solidarity. It feels like it's moving away from that, I guess would be the way to say it.
It could be said, and you put this in Woke today that you can read on SoonerScoop.com, it would maybe be the exact opposite for somebody like a Ryan Gilbert.
Yes. While Ryan Gilbert came in for his unofficial this weekend, or I guess this past weekend, and immediately you just kind of heard, okay, things are going really well. And guys, we talk about this all the time. Oklahoma's not a high pressure, pushing you to commit. Like, they're big on, we don't want you to take any more trips, so we want you to be ready when you're ready. Like, that, they try to be that way about it. At the same time, I get the impression they feel like they're pretty close to the finish line with Ryan Gilbert. Like, they've shown him what they need to show him. They've really made him a priority. They're doing all the things they need to do. And it's not – Oklahoma is not, like, rushing him, but I do get the feeling that there's some around that think, okay, this could happen pretty soon. Like, and I think Ryan's really comfortable with Oklahoma. After the whole A&M thing, I think he was kind of unsure of where he stood, and I think he had planned to take a while to go through all this. But he's been to Oklahoma multiple times here lately. He's set up for an official visit this summer. I just think it's going to be tough for him to say no to Oklahoma, and probably it wouldn't surprise me if it's done, this month.
Josh, any word on recruits coming in for the illustrious Crimson Combine?
Well, not just that, Josh, but like
throw shade at it.
Like do the coaches just treat it like maybe another Future Freaks where they're under the stadium with these kids doing stuff? And If they don't want
That sounds shady.
that,
Yeah, that didn't sound good.
well, at least I could join the party on recruiting. But I mean, like maybe they
I
don't want
promise
him.
this is not a Penn State
Yeah,
podcast,
I'd have to
okay?
go there. All right.
I promise.
All right. I'll rephrase the question or just ask it
Get us
again.
back on the tracks, Kerry.
Yeah. I mean, I got to think, like, maybe the crowd's not that great for this thing. They probably don't want recruits out there on the field seeing, like, oh, here's 2,000 people.
If it's a nice weekend, like weather-wise, I think it will be packed. I really do. Good weekend down around these parts, too, with softball. Is softball in town next weekend?
I think so.
I know baseball for a fact. They're hosting Vandy next weekend. If the weather's nice, I bet people will come out.
My family's coming.
To the Crimson Combine?
Yeah, I think they're going to check it out, but then I think they also want to go to the baseball game.
Yeah.
That day.
Be a good time.
Is your dad going to do some of the combine drills, George? Is he going to be involved? Or
No, but I'm sure he'll have thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the names that we've, either confirmed or have been added here recently. Honor Johnson is a guy that Chad Simmons, confirmed last night will be in. Big-time athlete from California in the 2027 class. My understanding is he's kind of being looked at as a defensive back, but I think it's pretty open. Like, I think if he really wanted to look on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's possible. DJ Ackerson, the kid from Putnam City, is expected to be there. One of the bigger ones, dating back a ways, is Caden Hall, the big safety from Florida that loved his visit way back in January and kind of surprised everybody. He's supposed to be back for the red and white game, which that'll make 2 trips from Florida to Oklahoma in the spring for one of the top, 10 safeties in the country. That's a pretty impressive move, and then especially that they can bring him back in June for an official visit, because he's set up for the Champ U barbecue on June 20th. So I think those are all notable. One of the interesting in-state ones, just because his status with OU has kind of changed here lately, is Cooper Hackett, the big offensive lineman from Fort Gibson. He's supposed to be there. For those who missed it, On3 updated their 2027 rankings not long ago, and they've got him as a top 20 overall player in the country. I mean, this is not just a small town Oklahoma guy. I think he's the number 4 offensive tackle in the country.
Josh, is that based off his sophomore film, or did he go to any of these regional camps here this past month?
No, Cooper hasn't been anywhere that I'm aware of, because I know he does a lot of basketball. So
excited to go see him then this spring.
Yeah. He's definitely Fort Gibson for the first time in a long time will be on one of my stops as we get around Oklahoma this spring.
We need to have Teddy accompany you, and he give you like the full tour of the town.
Absolutely. Where we eat, what do we do? I mean, where are the places to get drinks? I mean, I'm sure Teddy wouldn't know anything about that, but there is, and the other thing that's interesting, and this is, I need to clarify this with Brett, but Brett College, the offensive lineman from IMG that's a top 200 type player in the country, he has said that he'll be there on an official visit. I don't have anybody else for that weekend for an official visit, and I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if that's just the only weekend they could get him in. I've got to check on that a little bit, but that's an interesting storyline if Oklahoma's going to be open to that, because that's just not the way they've operated. They've kind of stayed away and really only done the summer officials.
All right. Anything else you want to get out there recruiting before we talk about Trae Young?
Well, I mean, I guess I should say for those who haven't read Woke, please go read it. Eddie mentioned Ryan Gilbert. There is another player I put in a prediction for today, and we talked about it a little bit on the recruiting report, but also an offensive lineman that Oklahoma seems to kind of have cut. I wouldn't say cut ties with, but definitely seems to have backed off. It's a good Woke. I think people will have a good blend of a little bit of insight and some positive news. Everybody likes a prediction for OU.
And you can sign up for just $1 if you have never been a subscriber to Sooner Scoop. So go grab that info and then start your own website. Put it behind a paywall. That's what everybody else does.
Okay.
You're not. You contractually not allowed to do that, Eddie. I hate
All
to
right.
tell you. Or George.
I'll call it
either.
double. I'll call it Sooner Double Scoop. That should be a little parody thing that we do. Sooner Double Scoop.
Yeah, we'll just undercut the parody people out of it. So we'll have our own parody account. I don't know if
Double
On
the
3
views.
would be down for that.
Double the views, double the fun.
All right. So first off, I think we need to explain. Trae Young is not retiring from the NBA
Well, we don't know that.
to be the assistant general manager. We do know that.
My mom definitely thought he did.
You
She's
told
like,
me
I
that,
cannot
yeah.
believe that he's going to stop playing basketball. I was like, what? What do you mean? I had to double check myself. I was like, did I miss something?
Well, and this is not, it's not groundbreaking. I mean, Steph Curry did it with Davidson. I want to say Woj has like a
Yeah,
St.
for
Bonaventure
St. Bonaventure,
guy?
but I mean, he actually
But yeah,
quit his job.
Woj is
But
the
no, I mean,
actual-
Woj, I think, is getting a famous
Oh, is he?
former
I don't know.
Bonnie or whatever to do some. I don't know.
I have no
Maybe
idea.
I'm wrong. But so essentially, I'm not saying that this is just a PR deal, but it's kind of a PR deal. I mean, it's to I think Trae is saying, look, I'm committed to helping you guys out however I can. Whatever you need from me, I'm going to be here for you. Oh, and by the way, here's $1 million to get this kick started. It's the first person in history probably that's ever paid $1 million to get a job.
Elon. Sorry. I had something in my throat. I hate when that happens.
Oh, now I'm being Josh.
It is cool, though. I don't know, what the actual... I don't know what he's going to actually do, but I do think that he is going to be, front and center, a very... what am I trying to say
Maybe
here?
if they have big recruiting
he's a
weekends, he
figurehead.
comes in.
He's a figurehead. He's
very
he's the guy-
reachable for prospective students to bump ideas or
Well,
transfers.
it's let's say OU's recruiting,
right.
X player in
Yes.
the portal.
Yes.
And Porter's they're trying to close the deal. They have Trae Young call the kid.
Yeah.
And put in a good word, or maybe
they
he
call a
donates some more
booster.
money or whatever.
I think it's for the first time in a long time you look at the OU basketball program and it's like, damn, that's okay. That's a great little gig
it's awesome.
that they got there.
And it's not
And I would imagine the $1 million will go a long ways too.
right, but Porter's not going to Trae Young and saying, "Boy, do you think we need to get a guard?" Or
I
do you
have
think we
5
need to-"
guards you need to look at from the portal. Give
Yeah.
me your evals, please.
That's not what's happening here.
It is. It does seem like some positive momentum, and it is a big period. I think that we're going to try to get with Bob here sometime soon, this next week or so,
Yeah.
and do a little hoops report about some of the guys that they brought in and some of the guys that are leaving actually today. Duke Miles puts his
today.
name in officially. I think that talking to Bob, though, I think that's it. I think that's going to be the guys that you're losing from this team. Anybody else outside of Duke Miles or the 2 forwards, Luke Norweather and Yaya Kita, and then I can't remember who the fourth. Jacob Coles, who I think some of us didn't know was actually on the team currently. I think that's it. Those are the 4 guys that are leaving.
And, Duke
Everybody else
Miles,
should be back.
obviously, a player you don't want to lose, but we don't know how much he's, commanding on the open. Because the open market right now is just insane in basketball. I mean,
Yeah, it's
I don't know if you read the On 3 newsletter
frankly,
this
it's
morning.
disgusting. I find it disgusting. But
But I
that's
mean,
neither here nor there.
guys are asking for $3 million.
It's just whatever.
And people are giving it to them. And there's a kid that turned down. Josh, we were talking about relationships, and you still got to recruit. There's a kid that turned down Kentucky, and they were willing to offer him $3 million. I think he signed with UCLA in the end.
Who? Donovan Dent.
Yeah, Donovan Dent is the kid from New Mexico.
New Mexico. Yeah. What is the Mount West?
$3 million though, and some think it might be even higher.
I just guessing. I don't think UCLA ended up giving him that, but I mean, $3 million for a year.
That's what Nakos is
for
saying.
6 months. I just that's insane to me.
I do think some of these numbers are a bit exaggerated.
Yeah, I think it's
like everything.
agents trying to reset the market.
Just
a
like
little bit.
the Chavez thing, where it came out a couple weeks ago that she was garnering what was it, $1.5 million a year. I can tell you she didn't get that much, and neither OU or Texas offered that much.
I don't know. After watching the video of her shooting threes in the 3-point contest on Tuesday night, maybe or
Baller.
I guess that would have been Monday night. Maybe she is worth that.
She did get
just
a lot
from
of
like
money.
pub alone, I think it's been worth that. Just like all the continued good, positive
It just sends out the
momentum
message.
on the basketball side. of
OU
things.
and Jenny Branchick, their player.
Yeah, and I thought that like the Trae doing it on SportsCenter on Monday afternoon. That's a positive thing for the OU basketball program. Anybody could see that and complain or not understand it.
And it really is been impressive that they're now that Trae is with Jordan and OU is a Jordan school, they've done a good job of kind of working the synergy on that between women's and men's basketball.
Yeah, let's continue it. Let's just start building an arena tomorrow.
Air was on the other day and I watched it from beginning to end.
Great movie.
Such a great movie.
What is it?
Air. About how they made the Jordan shoe.
Oh, never saw it. Heard it was good.
Oh my God!
Eddie, you would
sports foul.
Chris Tucker? I would have never guessed Chris Tucker would be in that and be as good as he was.
He's amazing. Eddie, you got to watch.
Yeah.
You would actually. I know you're not a big movie guy. You would love that movie. Absolutely love it.
Also,
What's it on?
I
don't know.
I think it came
out a couple
Amazon
years ago.
First.
Yeah, it was on Amazon.
If it's
for
on a
while.
TV channel in this country, I'll get
Oh
it.
no, we don't need to talk about this.
I'll get it. Great
so,
new cable setup, Josh. Might go to prison someday, but it's a great setup.
The feds
I
are
would
definitely
not
showing
talk
up.
about it. What you have going on over in that?
I think they know what I have going on already. They're already tapped into my phone and everything.
But no, I'll say this too. Ben Affleck, very convincing as a young Phil Knight.
Yeah, he was awesome. Matt Damon steals the show though.
Oh, he plays Sonny Vaccaro. Josh, have you not seen Air? You're acting like you need to watch it.
I definitely have.
Oh, okay.
No, I remember I was talking about. I like Chris Tucker in it. I thought he was really good. Out of kind of nowhere, you're like, wait, really? Okay, playing anything but the normal Chris Tucker role. So,
one thing too, just getting back to the Trae Young stuff. I know there's been a lot of questions about OU hiring a GM, and I think I mentioned on here like a week ago that they're looking into it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being somebody inside the program already. Like, I think that they're open to the idea of maybe making an external hire, but like I said, I don't think they're going to come to a conclusion, for a little bit. And right now they've got their hands full. But it's my understanding, Brock Morris, the director of player personnel, who I think they hired, Eddie, was it a year or two ago from Ole Miss?
Yeah, I want to say 2 years ago.
He's kind of their GM right now. Like, he's kind of leading that charge. He doesn't have the title. Maybe he ends up getting that title or someone else in the program does. But they definitely want that sort of structure at some point. I think the assistant GM, because a lot of people are like, how can you have an assistant GM and not have a GM? It's more of an optics thing with Trae Young than like he's an assistant GM.
Yeah.
He's not doing the same thing that Taylor Redd is doing, the assistant GM for football. Like, it's not apples to apples.
Right. It's
more like apples to like.
If it were, he would
carrots.
not still be playing in the NBA.
Correct.
So, like you said, it's kind of a figurehead thing, Eddie. I mean, right. But I think some good things will come from it, and it's good that they've done that.
Can't hurt.
Women, season is over. You got a pick for women's Final Four?
I'm going to take UConn. I think that they are playing the best basketball in the country right now. And Paige Beckers is
insane.
just on what she did in the second half against Oklahoma. And I don't think OU had the best defensive game plan for her, going under every single screen, but she also did not miss a shot. Like, she went on a 19-0 run by herself.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
not
she
a whole lot you could
outscored
do.
OU in the third quarter.
Yeah.
By herself. What she's done over the last 3 games, the South Dakota State game, the OU game, and then obviously on Sunday,
USC.
It's the most points over a 3-game total in UConn women's basketball history. And when you think about all of the fantastic players that Gino has had over the last 31 years, 32 years, it's incredible. It's insane to me.
I've seen a lot of South Carolina this year. I just don't think they have a Paige Beckers.
You know what's crazy? They're playing Texas for the 4th time this year.
It is insane.
That's insane because they played twice during the regular season, SEC championship, and then Friday in the Final Four.
I think you're looking at a UConn South Carolina game.
Yes,
national title game.
I think that's right.
I think South Carolina has probably the most depth and talent across the board.
Yeah.
But you're right. They don't have that superstar power. But, in South Carolina hasn't played well. But when they play well, boy, they're tough to beat. So
and UConn's beat them this year. So
yeah, they did.
Beat their ass.
Yeah.
In Columbia.
But that also makes me think maybe South Carolina beats them in the national title game.
I think South Carolina is probably the most talented team.
Yeah.
And they just haven't played well. Like, they haven't played well going back all the way to the end of the regular season.
Which is crazy. They haven't played well, and they're in the Final Four.
Oh, yeah, and they're the odds-on favorite, I think, still.
Yeah.
Well,
UCLA is
UConn
also.
is.
UCLA is also, UCLA, it's a good Final Four, just like the men's side.
Best.
You could predict any 4 of those, and I would believe you.
Yeah, on the men's side?
Yeah.
I think the men's side's going to be awesome. Saturday should be a
excited.
fantastic day of basketball.
I hope Houston
How long
Houston
can we keep
goes.
buying this? Like, there's got to be some good games at some point, right? Like, I feel like we keep
Yeah.
waiting, like that round that will be great, like we
Yeah.
thought it might be.
I think that these are like, I think everybody's seen the Ken Palm numbers that are out there. Like, analytically, these are the 4 of the best 10 teams in the country. George, are we interrupting your Instagram
I can't give him
viewing
shit. My
session?
phone went off during interviews last night.
Yeah.
The 4, they are literally analytically 4 of the best 10 teams since Ken Palm started in 1997. Like, they better be
There
good
has
games.
to be some accounting for that, right? Like, are they really that good, or is this like teams have learned how to game analytics?
There might be somewhere in between. I do think these teams are pretty good.
Yeah.
Auburn has the old veteran group that seemingly is just going to play college basketball forever. This is the best Houston shooting team that Kelvin's ever had, and they're still really good defensively. And then, obviously, Florida might be playing the best out of anybody over the last month and a half.
Just a well-constructed roster, too. Like, they just have
11 deep.
Yeah.
Like, their second unit is probably better than some teams' starting units.
OU's.
And Walter Clayton's been incredible. He's had a monumental run here over the course of March.
And then I think Duke's the best team.
And then you have Duke that, like,
I do
in
too.
some up way is, like, extremely likable. And I agree with everybody that has said that. It's the most cliche thing to say about this Duke team, but they are, like, somewhat likable. I don't know how that has come across.
Because Grayson Allen's in the NBA now.
Con
don't have that
Knippel doesn't
problem.
have the Grayson Allen effect yet. He might by the time but he's not going to be there for 4 years. It's just a completely different way to look at it. And John Trier seemed like I don't know. He's not a scumbag like the other Duke coach.
Yeah.
I didn't ever hate Duke. I kind of liked Duke because everybody did hate Duke. I'm that personality. I'm that person in the room. Like, I just know that about myself.
I hated Duke.
I didn't I remember I thought I liked Christian Laettner. Like, that tells you how far down that rabbit hole I can go.
I will say this: when I watched
like
the
those
Laettner documentary, it made me not hate him anymore. Like, I kind of like Laettner now.
When Grant Hill tore his knee up in the NBA, that was like a true sad day in my life. Like, I thought Grant Hill was going to be like Michael Jordan. I thought he was going to be the best thing ever.
It is interesting that these are the 4 best teams. They were the 4 best teams all season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were.
I think it's Duke and Auburn. I think
so
where
too.
it ends
They
up.
were the 2 best all year too. I mean,
Can't complain
I thought-
about that.
I thought so.
That'd be an awesome championship game on Monday night.
Yeah.
If
Just
Kelvin's
old
in
guys
it, it'll
versus
be
the
awesome.
pups.
I want Kelvin to
for
win.
everyone.
I want Kelvin to win.
Oh, I'd love it
Me
to
too.
be Kelvin. I agree.
His numbers and what he's been able to do. I don't know if you guys saw the video. We might have talked about this last week, but the video that Houston put out of him basically walking around the
Yeah,
student
that's
union in
awesome.
2014 to just generate interest within the program. He's done an unbelievable job. It helps with the Fertitta money and everything that they built with the new arena. But he's a fantastic basketball coach, and I love Kelvin. And
I
Kellen.
wonder if that game will feel like a little like that Tech Florida game where Houston just makes it ugly enough that they can kind of hang around. Like, they can just keep kind of fighting, and maybe they've got a chance with a few minutes left.
The thing about Duke is it's not just Cooper Flagg. Like, the point guard's been incredible for them. I can't remember his name. I guess this shows how much Duke I've watched this year. Haven't watched a ton because they're up by 30 every game. It's not fun to watch, but they are awesome.
All right. Looking forward to the Final Four, both men's and women's. Softball, they dropped the series with Tennessee. They just went against better pitching. Sam Landry got beat in both of her games. Against, I can't even remember Tennessee's best pitcher name. It's like
Carlin Pickens.
Pickens, yeah. I mean, she was just too much. And I think we're learning that this offense isn't as powerful as it has been.
Well, they got to have somebody other than Gabby
Pickering.
Garcia and Cassidy Pickering. I mean, obviously they gave the night off to Ella Parker on Wednesday night. Tuesday night down in Arlington. But they need to. I think that like this week, and Bob will talk about it on the Stickball Report. I think it's a good week to step out of conference play and just kind of recollect yourselves.
Well, the one positive that came out of it was Kirsten Deal had a really good game on Saturday.
Yeah, that was great. They needed that. And they needed that in the series, too.
Yeah, and they have not been able to get anybody except for
was it Friday
Sam
night?
Landry to.
Friday night, they got the runner thrown out at home in like the 7th.
I didn't catch the Friday night. I caught the Saturday and
I think
Sunday.
it was Friday night that they basically had an opportunity to win the game, and it took a perfect throw at home plate.
Eddie.
But yeah,
I was watching the baseball game Friday night.
And Sunday, it's like you have a 5-0 lead or a 3-0 lead. No, it was a 5-0. It was 5-0 or 3-0. It was 3-0 because they got beat 5-3. It was 3-0, and then you give it right back
with 2 outs.
I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that my mom has talked about. Like they're just not as good as they have been. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, they were like one of the best teams ever to play sport.
That's like
over the last couple of years.
OU doesn't have Baker, Kyler, or
yeah.
Jalen
I mean, they're
Hurts
still
anymore.
31-4. I think things are okay, but they're not as good as they have been.
No,
and that's just a reality that I think everybody knew. But when you start out like they did at 27-0 or whatever it was, I think people start wondering: is this invincible? Is it just a replace production and you just move on?
Well, here's the thing too. Like this is a team that never was a finished product when the season started. They've had teams with the bulk of their championship roster back year after year after year, and they don't have that this year. So, I mean, they've got to figure out and grow and learn how to play in pressure situations.
Yeah.
And learn how to get the big
and
hit
that's
when
not
you
to
have
say
to
it
get the
won't
big
happen.
hit. Yeah.
Like I still think that there is a lot of belief. that
this is not.
They're going to be okay.
This team is only going to get better. Like,
Sure.
don't get like, well, it's not very good this year. I'm just going to tune out. No, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And they're going to find more pitching, and they're going to find more clutch hitting.
They should pick up 3 wins
they're
over the
number
weekend.
3 in the country. And
Right.
People are acting like somebody died.
This is what it must have been like to cover Alabama and Saban's final year.
I mean, this is the monster.
Yeah.
And Patty's not
And
going anywhere.
I do want to say,
she's not neglecting
I don't know
the
if you guys
program
saw it
like Nick did.
Somebody on the recruiting report was like, Patty's on the hot seat, dumb take. And I'm like, you can't not recognize that was a joke, right? Like you really like, what are we talking about?
Sarcasm is not a strong feature of the YouTube commenter.
No,
I don't think
it's
intelligence is either. But,
Okay.
I mean, they're commenting on
if
the
we're
YouTube
comment talking about you, we are, and if
section.
we're not, we're not. So that's okay.
Okay, baseball. They played well at Alabama.
Yeah.
Just little stretches of pitching here and there, but they battled back. When they got down big on Saturday, if they would have gotten one little flare to fall, that might have been a different result on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think it's Carmichael's.
You just can't dig yourself an 8-1 hole.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
I mean, they could have, if that flare falls, it's 8-6, and they have all kinds of momentum, and then they would have ended up tying the game.
Yeah, like Taki hit the 2 home runs. He hit the
Taki's
one on
playing
Friday
really
night.
well.
He hit the one on Sunday to cut it to 8-6 and just didn't have enough. It's not a bad loss. You want to win series. You just don't want to get swept, especially on the road, and I think Alabama's a really good baseball team. Put yourself in position on Friday night to close it out and just weren't able to do it. I might have taken Bowden out after he walked the leadoff hitter in the 9th inning at the bottom of the 8th on Friday night, but it is what it is. They've worked out their way out of those situations all year. The bullpen's been fantastic, and it was again on Tuesday night. Cam Johnson experience is not going well. He's not throwing strikes. He's going to continue to get opportunities, and it's really a kind of a rolling of the dice to see what you're going to get with somebody like that. And the good news is
you get Crossland that's pitching really well.
Yeah, Crossland did pitch. He pitched well on Saturday. Obviously, put them in position to win the game that they did win in Tuscaloosa, and he'll get the ball again on Friday. It's going to be a weird weekend. The series starts on Thursday this week against LSU. It's a national broadcast on Thursday evening on ESPN2. The bad news is the weather is going to be kind of shit around here, and I don't know what they're going to do. So I was thinking that maybe, well, if you get rained out on Friday and Saturday, you got the open date on Sunday. You could play a doubleheader if possible. They can't do that. When a series starts, you have 72 hours in the SEC to finish that series. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the contingency plans are if they have to move some of these game times around. But it should be a fun weekend. I mean, LSU come to town. That's really all you need to say.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, LSU is a really damn good baseball team in the top 5 right now. So I'm kind of excited about it. Kyson Witherspoon was named the perfect game mid-season pitcher of the year. He's also a All-American. It's basically kind of
do they go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just move it up a day, or do they throw Kyson on Saturday?
No, he's pitching Thursday.
Okay.
Skip said he's pitching Thursday, and then you'll have Cade Cross on Friday and Malachi on Saturday. But you just don't know. Like, I don't know what the schedule is going to be if it really does rain and if the weather's as shitty as it's supposed to be. It's like the highs on Saturday is like 48 with a 90% chance of rain. I don't think you can do much with that. Good news is they hit 3 home runs down in Frisco.
Jackson Willett's back on it a little bit.
Jackson, Easton, and Jason Walk had really, really good nights. Jason Harris had 3 hits last night. They had 14 hits. They left 12 guys on base. That was the problem. I don't know what's going on with Texas Tech right now. They're 8-17. Terrible. Like, they're not a good baseball team.
I mean, Tadlock's done a pretty good job down there.
Yeah, and maybe it's just turnover. I really haven't been checking to keep up with the Joneses down there. Do they have injuries? Do they have guys that aren't playing right now? Do they have guys that are playing underperforming?
They gave all their money to Nigel Kennedy.
Possibly. Somebody brought that up in the game thread on Tuesday night. I really don't know what's going on down there. They're not very good, though. And then it's kind of the same deal up in Stillwater. I don't know what's going on in Stillwater either. They got beat by Missouri State again last night. They're under 500, I believe. They're 2-4 or 1-5, I think, in Big 12 conference play. And they've lost 2 of 3 to Utah and 2 of 3, or they got swept by Kansas, and then they played the one against West Virginia with the Fires and lost that game late. I think pitching's a problem for them, and defense is a problem for them as well. They gave up 10 runs to Missouri State on Tuesday night. So,
who closed it out last night? Crooks?
Crooks. He's leading the country in saves.
Yeah,
9.
He's the other really bright spot.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. The bullpen has been fantastic. I mean, you look at the starting pitching numbers, and even with Kyson, hasn't been great. Like, just as a whole, ERA wise, things like that. But they've been bailed out by the the one good thing, like, if you can see through the negative or the positive through the bad of what Cam Johnson and Jacob Golston haven't been, they've been able to see guys like a Jaden Barfield or a Bo Sampson or Michael Cantilano. Like, those are young freshman arms that are going to be around here for a while. And I think they're going to, some of those guys are going to end up starters. But to bring them in in the bullpen and to do what they've done, like a Bo Sampson coming in and inheriting the bases loaded and getting a double play ball. Jaden Barfield did the same thing on Friday or Tuesday night in the first inning. Inherited bases loaded and got out of it with a double play ball. Those are like massive, massive positives.
All right.
One other thing. Scott Mudler dislocated the shoulder last weekend against Mississippi State. Obviously didn't play this week. I don't know. I don't think that we're going to see him for the next couple weeks, and it's going to be just about managing how you go about that, because really Easton's the only guy that can catch. Mm-hmm. And the next 11 games, really the next 12 games starting on Tuesday night in Frisco with Texas Tech, it is a murderer's row.
Yeah.
I mean, you have LSU this weekend, Dallas Baptist next midweek, Vanderbilt, who's playing pretty good baseball right now, coming in 2 weeks, and then you have Bedlam on the back end of that. So it's a tough month for the OU baseball team. So far, so good.
All right, good stuff. Josh, any last words before we get out of here and go put together a practice report?
Any picks for the Crown tonight? Quarterfinal action.
Absolutely not. I will say rest in peace to Val Kilmer. That
crushing.
That hit for me. He's so much good stuff.
I got to be honest, Josh.
Not the movie guy.
I watched
I miss
Maverick
him already.
I watched Maverick so many times. I thought he actually did die already.
It was kind of one of those things where I was like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Because in my mind,
in bad shape for so long.
In my mind, they rushed him into that movie appearance because they knew he was about to die, and I just thought, well, he must be very close to death. And so, was it 5 years later now, almost, or 4, since that movie came out?
When they shot it, because they delayed it so much because of COVID.
It's crazy. He was great in The Doors. He played a great
The
Jim
Saint
Morrison.
is one of my all-time sneaky favorite movies of his, where he's like a agent, special agent, kind of for hire. And of course, Doc Holliday is just an all-time role.
It's one of the best movies of all time, Tombstone.
Did you realize that in Top Gun, he only had 10 minutes of screen time in that movie?
In the original?
In the original Top Gun, he only had 10 minutes of screen time.
I could see that.
That's how good he was in that movie.
How impactful that character was.
Yeah, that he was only
That's
in
crazy.
the movie for 10 minutes.
He was
He was in
also
the flight school with him, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was also the villain in MacGruber.
Yeah. Cunt. One of the great movies of all time, MacGruber. That's a cult classic in the guy text.
I've only seen the Instagram clip where it's like, I don't know why he hates me, and then he goes on to explain exactly why he hates him. Oh, it's so great.
It's one of the great movies of all time, MacGruber.
It really is a great movie.
What's the guy's name that plays MacGruber? That was on Saturday Night Live.
Will Forte.
Will Forte.
Yes, that is fantastic. Right up my alley.
And the wedding at the end, it's just fantastic.
Okay, I'll have to sit down and watch it then.
I
didn't think
definitely
that was him.
you will laugh. It's definitely very, very good. Any picks for the Anwa this week and the lead up to the Masters next week, the Augusta National Women's Amateur?
I'm going to say no one has picks for that but you.
Megan Gane, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Ganya? Shut 63 today in the opening round.
Sounds like a winner, Eddie.
I think it is.
All right.
good.
That is going. Is it? Is it going to do it?
Yeah,
Any more?
I'm done.
Okay. That's going to do it. We'll be back again next week for another edition. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to George. I'm Kerry Marlock. We'll see you back here next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast right here at Soonerscoop.com.